Close your eyes. The past is about to speak. When you think of the Edwardian era, you might imagine a long, golden afternoon. You see ladies with extravagant hats strolling through pristine parks, gentlemen discussing politics over brandy, and the exciting, modern sound of a new motor car on a country lane. It's a world of grace, progress, and seemingly endless garden parties. But that portrait, as lovely as it is a carefully curated photograph with most of the population cropped out. For the vast majority, this was an age of rigid class divides, of grueling work in smog-filled cities, and a life where the scent of coal dust was far more common than expensive perfume. Honestly, without your smartphone and central heating, you probably wouldn't last a day. I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight and what time it is in your corner of the world. Drop a comment below and let me know. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You awaken not with a jolt, but with a gentle nudge from the past. It isn't a sudden arrival. It's more like the slow, quiet blooming of awareness as you drift up from the depths of a long, deep sleep. The world you are entering is England at the dawn of a new century. The long, somber reign of Queen Victoria has finally ended, and her son, Edward, has taken the throne. There is a sense of change in the air, a feeling of shedding the heavy, formal skin of the past for something a little lighter, a little more modern. But this change is slow, uneven, and feels very different depending on where you lay your head at night. The Edwardian era, which officially spanned from 1901 to 1910, was not so much a decade as it was a state of mind, an atmosphere that lingered right up until the great rupture of the First World War. Tonight, this is where history whispers you to sleep. You are not just a visitor here. You are a participant. Your consciousness is a feather, ready to drift down and settle into the lives of 3 different families, to experience the rhythms of their day from the inside. First, you will be an Ashworth, a family of comfortable upper-middle-class means, living in a world of servants, social calls, and unspoken rules. Then, you will become a Harrison, solidly middle class, in a home where aspirations to gentility mix with the practical need to watch one's pennies. And finally, you will know the life of a Smith, a working-class family whose days are defined not by leisure, but by the relentless demands of labor and survival. Through their eyes, you will see one day unfold, a day that is both extraordinary in its detail and profoundly, sleepily, ordinary in its routine. But before you settle into any one bed, you simply float in the pre-dawn stillness, sensing the world as a whole. The air itself feels different. It's heavier, carrying the faint, ever-present aroma of coal smoke, the fuel that powers this mighty empire. In the city, it's a gritty, sulfurous scent that coats your tongue and clings to the back of your throat. Even out in the green suburbs, it's a distant haze, a reminder of the industrial heart that pumps life and grime throughout the nation. There is also the damp, earthy smell of a world without central heating, a world where chilliness seeps from the ground and settles deep within stone walls. You can feel this cold, a damp and penetrating presence that modern life has all but erased. It makes the warmth of a bed, the thick wool of a blanket, feel less like a comfort and more like a necessity, a fortress against the encroaching night. You notice something else, a faint current of air moving across your skin. It comes from a window deliberately left ajar. In this era, a new gospel of health is being preached, one centered on the power of fresh air. Many Edwardians, from the wealthiest to those of modest means who read the popular health pamphlets, believed that night air, once feared for carrying disease and pestilence, was actually a tonic. They saw it as the secret to good health, a way to flush out the stale, germ-filled air of the home and invigorate the lungs. Sleeping with a window open, even in the biting cold of a January winter, was not seen as a hardship, but as a modern, scientific practice. It was an act of self-improvement, a daily ritual to ward off consumption and the common cold. You can imagine the sensation, the crisp, almost sharp intake of breath as the cold air hits your lungs, the startling chill on your face while the rest of your body is burrowed deep under a mountain of heavy blankets and eiderdowns. There are no thermostats to argue over, no silent, efficient heating systems to maintain a constant, comfortable temperature. There is only the fire, banked low for the night, and this deliberate, bracing draft. Historians still debate the true effects of this Edwardian obsession with fresh air. Did this constant circulation of chilly air actually prevent more colds by dispersing germs? Or did it simply lead to an epidemic of perpetually chilly toes and a deep, abiding appreciation for a hot water bottle? We can only speculate. It represents a particular kind of resilience, a faith in human ingenuity to combat the ailments of the day, even if the methods seem rather punishing to us now. It's a quiet testament to their belief in progress, a belief that a better, healthier life was possible, one drafty night at a time. For now, you just feel that cool current on your cheek, a whisper from the past, inviting you to sink deeper into this forgotten world, to let its quiet, steady rhythms guide you toward rest. You feel the change as your awareness settles, condensing from a general atmospheric presence into a single, specific point of view. You are in Ashworth. You open your eyes, and the first thing you notice is the light. It isn't the harsh, direct light of an unadorned window, but a soft, diffused glow. It filters through fine lace curtains, and then through heavy, damask drapes that have been left open just a crack, a silent instruction to the staff. This light paints pale, shimmering rectangles on the high ceiling, catching the delicate plasterwork of cornices shaped like ivy leaves. The air in the room is cool, but not the biting, damp cold of the world outside. A low fire has been banked in the grate all night, and it breathes a gentle, sleepy warmth into the space, just enough to take the edge off the morning chill. Your bed is a vast, four-poster affair of dark, polished mahogany. You are cocooned in what feels like a cloud of linen and down. The sheets are Egyptian cotton, worn soft with countless launderings, and they feel impossibly smooth against your skin. You stretch, your arms barely reaching the edges of the mattress, the movement causing a faint rustle of fabric. The silence in the room is profound. It's not an absence of sound, but a carefully constructed quiet. The thick Persian rug on the floor muffles any footsteps. The heavy drapes absorb the sounds from the street, and the sheer size of the house insulates you from the clatter of the kitchen and the servants' quarters, which are a world away, down long corridors and steep back stairs. As your mind slowly clears, you become aware of your first task of the day. It's a challenge of memory and etiquette, a small but significant test. To your left, beside the bed, is a small table. On it sits a single glass of water, a book of poetry, and the end of a thick, braided cord of silk. This cord splits into three smaller, color-coded pulls, each with a delicate porcelain handle painted with a single flower. This is the bell system, the nervous system of the house, and you are its brain. One bell summons a junior maid, the tweenie, to bring your morning tea. Another summons your personal housemaid, who will help you dress, draw the curtains fully, and see to the fire. The third, a pale green one, rings directly to the housekeeper's office, a signal reserved for more serious matters or specific instructions. You stare at the pulls, a faint furrow in your brow. Was the blue one for tea and the rose for the maid, or the other way around? A mistake isn't catastrophic, of course. It would simply cause a moment of flustered confusion downstairs, a soft collision of duties as two servants arrive at your door at once. It's a minor disruption, but a disruption nonetheless, in a household that runs on the flawless precision of a Swiss watch. The sheer effort of having to remember this feels, for a moment, quite tiring. This is the kind of problem you face. You take a breath, make your choice, and give the rose-colored pull a firm tug. A moment later you hear it, not the sound of the bell itself, but the faintest, most distant vibration traveling through the walls of the house, a signal sent and received. While you wait, your gaze drifts around the room. It is a space of curated comfort. A large wardrobe stands against one wall, its mirrored doors reflecting the soft light. A dressing table is laden with silver-backed brushes and crystal pots of creams and powders. Across the room, a chaise lounge upholstered in velvet sits beneath the window, a perfect spot for reading or taking a brief rest in the afternoon. Every object speaks of quality, of substance, of a life lived without the sharp edges of need. There is no clutter, no sign of the messy business of daily life. Anything out of place is whisked away by silent, unseen hands. The door opens so quietly you barely register it. A young woman in a crisp black dress with a starched white apron and cap enters the room. She keeps her eyes downcast, a sign of proper deference. She curtsies, a small, barely perceptible dip. "Good morning, ma'am," she says, her voice low and steady. She moves with an economy of motion that is both graceful and practiced. First, she goes to the heavy curtains and pulls them wide. The room is now flooded with the full, gentle light of the morning, revealing tiny dust motes dancing in the sunbeams like miniature sprites. Then, she moves to the fireplace, using a small set of brass tools to stir the embers, add a few small lumps of coal, and coax the fire back to a cheerful, crackling life. The sound of the poker against the grate is a soft, rhythmic scraping. You lie back against the propped-up pillows, watching this quiet ballet of domesticity. The maid's role is one of many. Upper-middle-class families like yours often had a whole cast of servants, each with a territory as strictly defined as a map of the empire. There was the cook, who ruled the kitchen, the parlor maid, who served the meals and answered the door, the housemaids who cleaned the rooms, and perhaps a scullery made for the grimiest work. For the man of the house, there might even be a valet. Your maid's job is in this room and your person. She will lay out your clothes, help with your corsets and buttons, and perhaps brush your hair. She would never dream of bringing you tea. That is not her station. As the warmth from the revived fire begins to push back the last of the morning's chill, you hear a faint, rhythmic sound from far away, out in the world beyond your comfortable walls. It's a persistent, gentle tapping. It's the sound of a long pole, likely bamboo, with a wire brush or knob at the end, being tapped against a bedroom window pane on a lower-class street. It is the work of the knocker-upper, a person whose entire profession consists of walking the pre-dawn streets to wake their paying customers for work at the factories and mills. From the luxurious quiet of your bedroom, the very idea seems wonderfully, almost comically, quaint. Imagine paying a few pence a week for a stranger to tap on your window. It's a world away from your silk bell pulls. Historians still entertain a light-hearted argument about whether the diligent, human knocker-upper was ultimately more effective at rousing a person from slumber than the notoriously unreliable and often belligerent family rooster. For you, it's just a passing thought, a reminder of the intricate, unseen machinery that keeps the entire city, not just your house, running on time. The gentle tapping fades as the knocker-upper moves on, his job done just as yours is about to begin. The world shifts again. The sun-dappled, high-ceilinged room dissolves, and you find yourself in a space that is smaller, cozier, and considerably more cluttered. You are a Harrison now, and you are waking up in the heart of a middle-class home. The bed is still comfortable, made of sturdy oak rather than polished mahogany, and the sheets are clean, crisp cotton, though perhaps not of the same impossibly high thread count as the Ashworths. There is only one window in this room, and it is bare of heavy drapes, covered only by a simple, machine-made lace curtain. The light that comes through is more direct, more honest. It falls across a patterned wool rug that is slightly worn in the path between the bed and the door. You shuffle out of bed, and your feet meet not a plush Persian carpet, but cool, bare floorboards surrounding the rug. The air here has a different quality. It's still chilly, but it's a domestic chill, layered with the faint, lingering sense of yesterday's dinner, perhaps a baked ham, and the lavender sachet tucked inside the pillowcase. There's a quietness here too, but it's a family quiet, the sound of other people breathing in nearby rooms, not the profound, insulated silence of the Ashworth mansion. You can hear the distant, muffled sound of a cart rumbling down the street and the cheerful chirping of a bird from a cage downstairs. Your first task of the day is not to summon anyone, but to get yourself moving. There is no bell pull by your bed. Instead, on a small nightstand, there is a sturdy ceramic pitcher and basin set, decorated with bluebells. The water in the pitcher is cold, a shock to the system as you pour some into the basin and splash your face. It's invigorating, a sharp and effective way to chase away the last vestiges of sleep. You look around the room. It's a space that speaks of aspiration. There's a framed print of a dramatic landscape on the wall, a copy of a famous painting. The furniture is solid and respectable, chosen to last. But there are signs of the economy, too. A crack in the plaster has been neatly, but visibly, repaired. A small stack of books on the dresser shows wear on their spines, suggesting they were bought second-hand or have been read many times over. This is the careful balancing act of the middle-class Edwardian family. You aspire to a certain level of gentility, to a life that mimics, on a smaller scale, the lives of your wealthier neighbors like the Ashworths. You read the same magazines, follow the same fashions, and uphold the same strict moral codes. But your resources are more limited. You might employ one general servant, a maid-of-all-work who is cook, cleaner, and nanny all in one, or perhaps none at all, relying on the labor of the women of the house. In your family, it's the former. A single, harried young woman named Mary lives in a small room in the attic and is already at work downstairs, lighting the kitchen stove. You dress yourself. Your clothes are laid out not by a maid, but by your own hand the night before. You pull on your layers, the chemise, the drawers, the restrictive corset that is a requirement for any respectable woman, cinching your waist to achieve the fashionable S-shaped silhouette. It's a daily ritual of construction, of building the proper public self. As you button your blouse, you hear the sounds of the house waking up around you. The floorboards in the hall creak as your husband heads to the washroom. The high-pitched, excited whispers of your children are audible from their shared bedroom down the hall. Breakfast is a family affair, a phrase that sounds charming but is rooted in necessity. There's no separate nursery where the children take their meals. Everyone eats together in the dining room, a room that also serves as a place for homework, sewing, and evening gatherings. You head downstairs, the scent of toast and brewing tea growing stronger. The dining room is dominated by a heavy table and a large, imposing sideboard. This piece of furniture is the family's shrine to respectability. On it are displayed the best things you own: a silver-plated tea service, a set of cut glass tumblers, and a decorative serving dish that is used only on Christmas and other high holidays. And in the corner by the window sits another crucial status symbol. On a delicate stand is a brass birdcage, and inside, a small yellow canary hops from perch to perch. It lets out a tentative, trilling song. It was quite fashionable for middle-class families to own a canary. It was a sign that you had a little extra income, enough to afford a creature that served no practical purpose. It was a living ornament, a small, cheerful beacon of your family's modest success. Oddly, its song was often secondary to its mere existence. It was a status symbol first, and a pet second. Historians continue to debate which object was the true centerpiece of the Edwardian middle-class home: the bright, living canary, a symbol of disposable income and fashionable taste, or the family's gleaming silver teapot, a testament to the sacred ritual of hospitality and domestic order. Both represent a deep-seated need to project an image of comfort and stability. You are expected to help set the table. There are no butlers here to oversee the placement of the forks. You take the plates from the sideboard and lay them out, ensuring the cutlery is properly aligned. Your daughter, perhaps 10 years old, emerges from the kitchen carrying the pot of marmalade. It's a quiet, shared effort. This is not the delegated, invisible labor of the Ashworth household. It's a hands-on, collaborative process. The goal is the same: a well-ordered, civilized meal to start the day. but the means of achieving it are entirely different. It's a life built on a foundation of making do, of turning necessity into a virtue. The routine of it is comforting, a daily reaffirmation of your family's place in the world. Not wealthy, certainly, but respectable, decent, and holding fast to the small civilities that separate you from the great, struggling mass below. The world shifts one last time, and it is a jarring, physical shock. The soft bed, the solid furniture, the very idea of a private room, it all evaporates. You are a smith, and you wake up not to gentle light but to a deep, penetrating darkness that is only marginally less black than the sleep you've just left. You are not alone. You are pressed warm against the bodies of two of your siblings, a tangle of arms and legs under a thin, lumpy blanket, and a worn-out overcoat that serves as an extra layer. The mattress beneath you is a straw-stuffed pallet laid directly on the floor. It smells faintly of damp, dust, and the unwashed bodies crammed onto it. You wake before dawn. There is no gentle nudge, no distant bell, no cheerful bird. The signal to rise is a raw, biting chill that seems to have finally wormed its way through the shared body heat of the bed. It's a cold that feels less like a temperature and more like a physical presence in the room, seeping up through the floorboards from the damp earth below and sneaking through the cracks in the window frame. The single window is small and grimy, offering a view of a brick wall just a few feet away. Even when the sun does rise, it will bring little light to this room, only a dull, gray twilight. You don't shuffle out of bed. You disentangle yourself, trying not to wake the others with a misplaced elbow or knee. The floor is rough, splintery wood, and you feel it under your bare feet. There's no time for dawdling, no concept of lingering in bed. The day is a race against time and poverty, and it starts now. The room is tiny, perhaps 10 feet by 10 feet, and it serves as the bedroom for you and all 5 of your siblings. In the other room of this small, 2-room flat, your parents are already stirring. You can hear the soft scrape of a match and the low murmur of your mother's voice. This is the reality for millions of working-class families in Edwardian England, packed into the cramped urban housing of industrial cities like London, Manchester, or Liverpool. These tenement buildings, or back-to-backs, were built quickly and cheaply to house the workforce that powered the factories. Privacy is a luxury you cannot imagine. Comfort is a foreign concept. Your entire world is contained within these 2 small rooms, shared with 7 other people. The air is thick and stagnant, heavy with the smells of sleep, coal smoke from the shared chimney, and the faint, ever-present odor from the communal privy down in the courtyard. There is no pitcher and basin here. Washing, such as it is, will be a quick splash of cold water from a bucket later if there's time. You pull on your clothes, which were folded in a small pile on the floor. They are rough, patched, and still damp from the previous day's wear. Everything you own could fit into a small wooden box. You are a child, perhaps 12, but your childhood is a fleeting thing. You are already a worker. Soon, you will be heading out to a local workshop or factory, or perhaps helping your mother with piecework she takes in at home, like sewing shirt collars or boxing matches. The cramped quarters, with sometimes 2, 3, or even 4 children to a bed, were a simple fact of life. While it seems impossibly grim to a modern mind, it had its own strange dynamics. For a small child, this pile of siblings could be a source of immense comfort and warmth, a shield against the night's cold and fear. It also made for some surprisingly complex and creative pillow fort, engineering on the rare occasion there was a spare moment for play. A blanket draped over the heads of 3 children could become a tent, a castle, a secret world shielded from the harsh realities just inches away. Historians still dispute the long-term social effects of these close quarters. Did this enforced intimacy lead to closer, more resilient family bonds, a sense of shared struggle and solidarity? Or did it simply lead to more arguments over blanket rights, frayed tempers, and a desperate, lifelong craving for a moment of solitude? The answer most likely is both. You move into the other room, which serves as the kitchen, the living room, and your parents' bedroom. A small iron stove in the corner is struggling to produce a meager warmth. Your mother is at the stove, stirring something in a pot. Your father is lacing up his heavy work boots, his face etched with weariness even at this early hour. The room is crowded with the basic furniture of survival: a small wooden table, a few rickety chairs, and a curtain strung across one corner to create a semblance of a separate sleeping area for your parents. Breakfast is not a ritual of civility. It is a rapid intake of fuel. There is no groaning table, no choice of preserves. Your mother ladles a thin, watery porridge into a bowl for you. Or perhaps it's just a chunk of stale bread, maybe with a smear of dripping if the family could afford a joint of meat on Sunday. This breakfast is more hopeful than hearty. It's a prayer that this small amount of energy will be enough to get you through a long morning of hard labor. You eat it quickly, standing by the stove to catch what little warmth it offers. There is no conversation, only the quiet, focused business of getting ready. Every moment is precious. Being late for work could mean losing a day's pay, a small disaster that could cascade into hunger by the end of the week. You look at your family in the dim, flickering light of the single oil lamp. Their faces are pale, smudged with soot, but you also see a toughness, a resilience etched into their features. This life is hard, a relentless grind. Yet they endure. They have built a life, a family in the heart of this industrial machine. They find moments of humor, of kindness, of shared strength. They are not merely victims of their circumstances. They are survivors, adapting and persevering with a quiet fortitude that is, in its own way, as impressive as the Ashworths' grand home or the Harrisons' respectable aspirations. Your breakfast finished, you pull on a thin coat, ready to step out into the cold, dark street. Work awaits, and there is no time to lose. You now find yourself in a strange, composite state, able to perceive all 3 breakfast tables at once. It is as if you are seated simultaneously in 3 different moments, tasting the very essence of class on a plate. The sensations are jarringly distinct, a sensory collage of Edwardian England's deeply stratified society. One meal is a performance, another a routine, and the third a necessity. The simple act of breaking the morning fast becomes a clear, unambiguous declaration of who you are, what you can afford, and what the world expects of you. First, you are back with the Ashworths in their formal dining room. The room itself is an imposing space, with dark wood paneling and a large bay window overlooking a manicured garden. The table is a vast expanse of polished mahogany, covered with a starched, snow-white linen tablecloth that seems to absorb the morning silence. A silver toast rack gleams beside a silver butter dish. The porcelain is fine, translucent, and decorated with a delicate floral pattern. The air smells of beeswax from the polished furniture, the faint, pleasant aroma of brewed coffee, and the salty, smoky scent of grilled fish. You sit at this table, which groans under the weight of choice. Before you is a spread that could feed the Smith family for 3 days. A silver chafing dish, kept warm by a small spirit lamp, contains glistening, perfectly cooked kippers, herring that has been split, salted, and smoked. Their rich, oily flavor is a sharp and satisfying start to the day. There is also a platter of grilled kidneys and streaky bacon, cooked until crisp. In the center of the table sits a large, covered dish holding a mound of scrambled eggs, creamy and yellow. There are pots of thick-cut marmalade and strawberry jam, a bowl of freshly stewed fruit, and a basket of toast, both white and brown. To drink, there is a choice of Indian tea or coffee, served from heavy, ornate silver pots by the ever-present, silent parlor maid. The meal is eaten with a kind of leisurely formality. Newspapers, like the Times, are read between bites. Conversation is muted, revolving around plans for the day, a fitting with the tailor, a committee meeting for a local charity, a decision on which horse to back in the afternoon's race. There is no rush. This breakfast is not mere fuel. It is the first act of the day's theater of gentility. It's a ritual that reaffirms your status, a display of abundance that is both expected and entirely taken for granted. You take a bite of kipper, its salty tang a familiar comfort, a taste of a world where there is always, always more than enough. Then, your senses shift to the Harrison household. The dining room is smaller, the table made of solid oak, its surface protected by a more practical, patterned tablecloth. The atmosphere is less formal, filled with the low hum of family life. The sounds are of clinking spoons against ceramic, the rustle of a child's school book, and your husband reminding your son not to read at the table. The air smells of porridge, strong black tea, and the faint, sweet scent of toast browning under the grill of the kitchen range. The breakfast here is wholesome, substantial, but without the luxurious excess of the Ashworth's table. The centerpiece is a large tureen of porridge, cooked slowly until thick and creamy. You can add a spoonful of brown sugar or a drizzle of golden syrup for sweetness. There is a plate of toast, made from a standard loaf of white bread, and a dish of butter and a single pot of marmalade. A boiled egg, served in a small ceramic cup, is a common and welcome addition. The tea is strong and milky, poured from a sturdy brown earthenware teapot that has pride of place in the center of the table. This meal is about routine and respectability. It is nutritious enough to send a husband off to his office and children off to school with full stomachs. It reinforces the family structure, with everyone gathered together before the day pulls them in different directions. The conversation is practical, reminders about school shoes, questions about homework, a discussion of the household budget. It is a meal that says, "We are a sensible, well-managed family." We eat proper food and we do not waste our money on frivolous things. There is no sense of deprivation, only a quiet pride in making the most of what you have. And then, the final, stark contrast. You are at the smith's small, rickety table. There is no tablecloth, only the bare, scrubbed boards. The light is dim, coming from the single, smoky oil lamp. The room is cold, and you huddle close to the meager fire in the stove as you eat. There are no choices here. Breakfast is what is available. Often, this means a slice of bread from a loaf that is already a day or two old. It's dense and slightly dry. If you are fortunate, it might be spread with a thin layer of beef dripping, the solidified fat from a previous meal, which adds a savory flavor and some much-needed calories. Or it might be dipped into a cup of weak, heavily sweetened tea to soften it. Sometimes it's a bowl of sop, which is simply bread broken into a bowl with hot water or milk poured over it, with a sprinkle of sugar if available. It's warm and filling, but it offers little in the way of real nutrition. Today, it's yesterday's bread, and you chew it slowly, making it last. The taste is plain, the texture coarse. It's a meal of pure function. Its only purpose is to quiet the rumbling in your stomach and provide enough energy to begin a day of hard, physical labor. There is no conversation, only the sound of chewing and the knowledge that every minute spent eating is a minute not spent earning the pennies needed for tomorrow's bread. Among these varied menus, there was one surprisingly common, and to modern palates, rather odd breakfast item that could occasionally appear on tables from the middle class upwards: sardines. Yes, those small, oily fish packed tightly in a tin. Edwardians sometimes ate them on toast for breakfast. The sharp, intensely fishy flavor was considered a stimulating way to start the day. Historians still wonder about the brief popularity of this breakfast choice. Was it a genuine appreciation for the taste, a testament to the era's more robust palates? Or was it more about the sheer thrill of modernity, the novel convenience of opening a tin to produce an instant, savory meal? It was a little piece of the industrial age, right there on your breakfast plate, a strange and pungent symbol of a world in transition. And as you taste the phantom flavors of kipper, porridge, and dry bread, you understand that in Edwardian England, you truly are what you eat. Now, with breakfast concluded, the true work of the day begins, and you find yourself immersed in the hum and bustle of household management. This is the invisible engine that drives Edwardian life, a never-ending list of chores that must be completed to maintain order, cleanliness, and civility. Whether this labor is delegated to a team of servants or falls on the shoulders of the family itself, it is a constant, demanding presence, shaping the rhythm of every home. Your awareness returns first to the Ashworth residence, where the household is now a hive of structured, specialized activity. You are not performing the labor, but you are acutely aware of it, a low thrum of purposeful movement throughout the grand house. As the lady of the house, your role is that of a general overseeing her troops. After breakfast, you retreat to the morning room, a comfortable, sunlit space where you meet with your housekeeper. She stands before you, her hands clasped, a small notebook in hand, and gives her daily report. The butcher has delivered the lamb for tonight's dinner, A new supply of beeswax and turpentine is needed for polishing the floors, and one of the junior maids has reported a small tear in the drawing room curtains. You listen, give your instructions, and approve the menus for the next 2 days. This is your work, management. You are ensuring the smooth, efficient operation of a complex domestic machine. You don't scrub the floors, but you must ensure they are scrubbed to your standard. You don't polish the silver, but you would certainly notice if a single teaspoon was tarnished. The house functions because of this strict hierarchy. Downstairs in the servants' hall, the staff has had their own, simpler breakfast and are now dispersing to their posts. You hear the faint, rhythmic thump of a carpet being beaten in the back garden. You catch a whiff of bleach from the laundry room, where sheets are being boiled in huge copper pots. The sheer amount of labor is staggering. In a world without vacuum cleaners, washing machines, or dishwashers, keeping a house like this clean is a Herculean task. Dust, the great enemy of the Victorian and Edwardian homemaker, is a constant battle. It settles on every carved surface, every velvet drape, every intricate knick-knack. It must be fought daily with damp cloths and feather dusters. The silver must be polished weekly, a tedious, painstaking job. Floors must be swept, scrubbed, and polished. Fireplaces must be cleaned of ash and relit every single day, a dirty and physically demanding chore. And deep in the bowels of the house, in a small, damp room off the kitchen, is the scullery. Here, a specific servant, the scullery maid, has one of the least desirable jobs in the entire house. Her world is one of greasy water, endless pots and pans, and mountains of vegetables. Her sole domain is washing the dishes and preparing the food for the cook, peeling potatoes, shelling peas, and plucking chickens. It is relentless, repetitive, and utterly essential work. Historians, with a touch of irony, still debate whether the true start of the modern age and the liberation from domestic drudgery was the vote for women or the much humbler invention of the mechanical potato peeler. Now you are a Harrison. The hum of activity is much closer, and you are part of it. After your husband has left for the office and the children for school, the work of running your more modest home begins. You may have your one maid-of-all work, Mary, but you work alongside her, or at the very least, you closely supervise and direct her. The two of you make a plan for the day. Monday is washing day, Tuesday is for ironing, Wednesday for mending, and so on. A rigid weekly schedule that brings order to the chaos of domestic life. You might find yourself donning an apron and helping to knead the dough for the week's bread, or turning the handle of the heavy, cast-iron mangle to press water from the wet laundry. You are the one who dusts the precious ornaments on the sideboard, carefully wiping down the glass of the canary's cage. The work is just as hard as in the Ashworth house, but it is not invisible. It is right in front of you in your hands. You feel the grit of the scouring powder as you clean a stubborn pot. You smell the hot iron as it presses a cotton shirt, its metallic scent filling the kitchen. There are no specialized roles here. You and Mary are the cook, the cleaner, the laundress, and the mender all in one. It is a shared struggle against grime and disorder. You are constantly dodging chores with the skill of a seasoned diplomat, or rather, you are tackling them head-on. There is a sense of pride in a well-kept home, a gleaming teapot, and a neat stack of ironed linens. It is a direct reflection of your own industry and good management. Finally, you are a smith. In your two small rooms, the concept of household management is almost a cruel joke. The primary chore is survival. There is no team of servants, no maid-of-all work. The labor falls entirely on your mother, and on you and your siblings when you are not at your own jobs. The never-ending chore list here is stark and basic. First, fetching water. The single tap is in the courtyard, shared by a dozen other families. This means hauling heavy buckets up several flights of stairs, multiple times a day. The water is needed for the minimal washing you can manage, for cooking, and for the endless cups of tea that punctuate the day. Cleaning is a constant, losing battle against the soot that filters in from the city air and the grime that is tracked in from the streets. The floor is scrubbed with a stiff brush and cheap soap, but it never feels truly clean. Laundry is a monumental task, done in a large tub in the middle of the room. The clothes then hung on lines strung across the ceiling, filling the tiny space with dampness for days. Mending is not a choice but a necessity. A hole in a sock is not a reason to discard it. It is a job for the darning needle, to be done by firelight in the evening, extending the life of the garment for another few weeks. There are no silver-backed brushes or velvet curtains to worry about. The work here is elemental, finding enough fuel for the fire, making sure the bread doesn't go moldy, chasing the rats away from the food scraps. Children are not shielded from this labor. They are an essential part of it. A 5-year-old can be sent to fetch a pail of water. A 10-year-old can scrub the front stoop. Everyone contributes. It is a life stripped bare of all ornament, where the line between order and chaos is razor thin and must be defended every single day with raw, physical effort. The ingenuity here is not in managing a staff, but in making a shilling stretch for a week, in turning a worn-out dress into a set of rags, in keeping a family alive against the odds. The morning moves on, and now you slip into the roles defined by work, profession, and social standing. The day for an Edwardian man, and increasingly for women, was sharply divided by class and gender. The hours between breakfast and the midday meal were a time of purpose, whether that purpose was building an empire, managing a business, or simply surviving the factory floor. You are an Ashworth again, the man of the house. Your morning is a testament to gentlemanly leisure, a concept that is itself a form of work, the work of maintaining status. After your multi-course breakfast, you do not rush off to an office. Instead, you retreat to your study. This is a sanctuary of masculine comfort, smelling of leather, old paper, and the faint, sweet aroma of pipe tobacco. The walls are lined with glass-fronted bookcases filled with handsomely bound volumes of history, philosophy, and classical literature. A large, heavy desk dominates the room, but it is not a place of frantic activity. Your primary task for the morning is to read the Times. This is not a casual skim. It is a thorough, deliberate process. You read about the debates in Parliament, the state of the markets, the latest developments in the colonies, and the society pages. This is how you stay informed, how you maintain your grasp on the world you help to run. Your wealth likely comes from inherited land or investments managed by a solicitor. Your direct involvement is minimal. Your work is to be a man of substance, of knowledge, of influence. After the paper, you might spend an hour or two on your correspondence, writing letters on thick, creamy paper with a fountain pen. You might write to your stockbroker, to the secretary of your London club, or to a cousin regarding an upcoming family event. Around 11, you might decide to take a walk into the local town or village. You put on a tweed jacket and a bowler hat, take up a sturdy walking stick, and set out. This is not merely for exercise. It is to see and be seen. You greet the vicar. You stop for a word with the bank manager. You nod to the shopkeepers. You are a pillar of the community, and your presence reinforces that fact. Your morning is a quiet performance of your role in society. There is no boss to report to, no deadline to meet. Your occupation is to be a gentleman, and it is a full-time job. Your awareness then shifts, and you become Mr. Harrison, a man of the professional middle class. Your morning is entirely different. After your sensible porridge and toast, there is a flurry of activity. You put on your suit, not the fine tweed of a gentleman, but a durable, dark wool suit that is the uniform of the office worker. You kiss your wife and children goodbye, and join the river of other men flowing towards the city center, perhaps on a clattering tram or one of the new suburban trains. The journey itself is a time for reading a more populous paper, like the Daily Mail, catching up on the news in a more hurried, practical fashion. You arrive at your office. You might be a clerk in an insurance company, an accountant, or a junior manager in a shipping firm. The office is a bustling, noisy place. The air is filled with the sound of rustling paper, the scratching of hundreds of pens on ledgers, and the insistent ringing of telephones. It smells of stale air, ink, and damp wool coats. Your desk is one of many, lined up in neat rows in a large, open-plan room. You work under the watchful eye of a senior manager who paces the aisles to ensure everyone is diligently at their tasks. Productivity is the god of this world. The work is often repetitive and mentally taxing, endless columns of figures to add, letters to copy, orders to file. There is a strict code of conduct. Personal conversations are frowned upon. Some offices even went so far as to ban whistling, a surprisingly common habit for a man passing the time. The reasoning was twofold. Management feared it would lower productivity by distracting others, or perhaps more honestly, it just annoyed the boss. Historians still can't agree on the psychology of the workplace whistle. Was it a genuine expression of contentment that actually made the monotonous workday go by faster? Or was it a minor act of rebellion, a way to claim a small piece of auditory territory in a controlled environment? For you, Mr. Harrison, the rule is the rule. You keep your head down, focus on your ledger, and dream of the day you might get a promotion and a small, private office of your own. Your work is the engine of your family's respectability, the source of the funds that pay for the canary and the silver-plated teapot. It is a world of effort and ambition. So before this great story continues, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you're enjoying our journey together. Your support means the world. Finally, your perspective shifts to the most grueling reality. You are a smith and you have been at work for hours already. You did not travel by tram. You walked through the dark, cold streets to the factory or workshop. If you are a man, perhaps you work at the docks, a place of precarious, back-breaking labor, hoping to be chosen for a day's work unloading cargo. Or maybe you are in a vast, thundering textile mill, the air thick with cotton dust that coats your lungs. The noise is deafening, a relentless mechanical roar that you have to shout over to be heard. You don't have a desk. You have a station, a small piece of territory in front of a giant, intimidating machine. If you are a woman, you might be in a laundry, your hands raw from hot water and harsh soap, or in a match factory, where the toxic phosphorus used for the match heads could cause a horrifying disease called phossy jaw. If you are a child, you might be working as a doffer in a mill, a dangerous job that involved climbing onto the machinery to replace full bobbins. Your small, nimble fingers a valuable asset. The hours are long 10, 12, sometimes 14 hours a day. The work is physically exhausting and often dangerous. There is no study, no office, no whistling. There is only the relentless rhythm of the machine, the watchful eye of the foreman, and the constant, gnawing knowledge that an injury or a slowdown could mean instant dismissal. The sensory experience is overwhelming. The smell is of machine oil, sweat, and whatever material is being processed: coal dust, raw wool, hot metal. The sound is a physical assault, a constant vibration that you feel in your bones long after your shift has ended. Your body aches from standing, from lifting, from the repetitive motions that you perform thousands of times a day. This is not work as a profession or a status symbol. This is work as a brute fact, a means of earning the few shillings that will buy the next meal and pay the rent on your 2 small rooms. It is a world away from the quiet rustle of the Times or the orderly scratch of a pen in a ledger. It is the raw, untamed engine of the Edwardian economy, fueled by the toil of millions just like you. As the midday sun reaches its highest point, the rhythm of the day shifts from work to a brief interlude of rest and refreshment. For some, this is a carefully orchestrated social ritual. For others, it is a precious, fleeting moment of peace. You now experience these afternoon diversions, where leisure, like everything else, is a clear marker of your place in the Edwardian world. You are an Ashworth, and the concept of a lunch break doesn't quite apply. Your midday meal is a formal, multi-course affair, not unlike a smaller version of dinner. After this meal, the afternoon stretches before you, a blank canvas to be filled with genteel activities. The weather is pleasant, so you decide to take a stroll in your garden. This is not a small patch of grass. It is a sprawling, beautifully designed landscape. A gravel path crunches softly under your feet as you walk. The air is sweet with the scent of roses and freshly cut grass. A gardener, a man you employ full-time, tips his cap to you as he diligently weeds a flower bed. He is a silent, deferential presence in your private paradise. You might pause on a stone bench beneath a weeping willow to read a few pages of a novel, or perhaps you engage in a game of tennis on your private court, the soft thwack of the racket and ball a gentle, rhythmic sound. Tennis is a fashionable, modern sport, and having your own court is a significant symbol of wealth and leisure. For the ladies of the house, the afternoon is the time for paying social calls. This is a highly ritualized activity. Dressed in your best afternoon gown, complete with hat and gloves, you would be driven in your carriage, or perhaps your new, exciting motor car, to the home of a friend or acquaintance. You would present your calling card to the maid at the door and be shown into the drawing room for a brief, 20-minute visit of polite conversation and tea. Or perhaps you are hosting. The parlor maid brings in the heavy silver tea tray, laden with delicate sandwiches, scones with clotted cream and jam, and a variety of small, exquisite cakes. The conversation is light, a delicate dance of gossip, social planning, and subtle inquiries. It is a world away from the grit and grind of the morning's work that powers the city. And for some of the older, more traditional members of your circle, even these gentle pastimes could seem alarmingly modern. The game of croquet, for instance, was considered dangerously progressive by some. The sight of men and women competing together, of ladies bending over to line up a shot, was thought to be a bit too informal, a bit too racy. Historians still argue whether the moral panic over croquet was truly about a perceived threat to social order, or if it was just a good excuse to wear a fashionable hat and engage in some light-hearted, socially sanctioned flirtation on a sunny afternoon. Your awareness shifts and you become a Harrison. Your afternoon break is far more constrained. As an office worker, you have a designated hour for lunch. You might bring sandwiches from home, simple cheese or cold meat, which you eat at your desk to save money. Or you might go to a local chop house, a bustling, no-frills establishment that serves cheap, hearty meals to the city's clerks and managers. The air inside is thick with the smell of grilled meat, boiled vegetables, and steam. You eat quickly, surrounded by the chatter of other men discussing work, sports, or politics. If you are Mrs. Harrison, the break is simply a shift in the type of domestic work you are doing. The midday meal is a simple affair, perhaps leftovers from last night's dinner, eaten in the kitchen with the maid Mary. The afternoon is for mending, for letter writing, or for running errands. You might walk to the high street to buy buttons, to pick up a prescription from the chemist, or to pay a bill. These are not leisurely strolls. They are purposeful trips with a list in hand. Leisure is something that has to be carved out, often on a Sunday. An afternoon might offer a brief window for you to sit with a cup of tea and read a chapter of a serialized story in a magazine. A small moment of escapism before the children return from school and the preparations for the evening meal must begin. Your leisure is not a sprawling garden, but a comfortable chair by the window, a small island of peace in a sea of domestic responsibility. Finally, you are a smith. The idea of an afternoon diversion is utterly alien. Your break is a brief, legally mandated 30 or 60 minutes away from the punishing noise of the factory floor. There is no manicured garden, no chop house. You sit on a crate in the factory yard, or on the cold stone steps outside, unwrapping the piece of newspaper that holds your lunch. It is a thick slice of bread, and perhaps a hard-boiled egg or a piece of cheese. You eat it quickly, your body still vibrating with the rhythm of the machinery. The air smells of industrial smoke and the nearby canal. This short respite is not for socializing or relaxation in the way the other classes would understand it. It is for refueling your body and resting your aching limbs before you must return to the relentless work. The conversation with your fellow workers is about survival, complaints about the foreman, worries about a sick child, a shared rumor about a possible layoff. You might see children, too young for the factory, playing in the street. Their games are not with tennis rackets, but with stones, hoops, and their own imaginations. A discarded wooden box becomes a cart. A piece of rope becomes a skipping rope. Their laughter is a brief, bright sound in the grimy street. For an adult, a rare moment of true rest might be simply sitting on the front stoop of your tenement building at the end of a long day, watching the world go by. It's a moment to catch your breath, to feel the sun on your face if you're lucky, to simply be still. This is leisure in its most basic, elemental form, the simple, profound absence of work. It is a testament to the human need for rest, for a small pause in the struggle, a quiet moment to gather the strength to face the rest of the day. As the afternoon light begins to soften, your focus shifts to the children of the Edwardian era and the world they inhabit. The world of education. The schoolroom, whether it was a dedicated space within a grand house or a crowded, noisy classroom, was a place where the lessons of class were taught just as explicitly as the alphabet or multiplication tables. Access to education and the type of education one received were among the most powerful forces in determining a child's future. You peer first into the world of the Ashworth children. Their schoolroom is a bright, airy space on the second floor of the house, overlooking the garden. It is furnished with child-sized wooden desks, a large blackboard, and shelves filled with books and educational toys. There is no noisy bell signaling the start of class. Their education is delivered by a live-in governess, a respectable but often lonely figure in the household hierarchy. She is a woman of good education but modest means, tasked with imparting knowledge and, more importantly, the manners and morals befitting a child of the upper middle class. You observe the morning's lesson. The 10-year-old son is wrestling with Latin declensions. A solid grounding in the classics is considered essential for a boy who will one day attend a prestigious public school like Eton or Harrow, and then go on to Oxford or Cambridge. His sister, a year or two older, is not expected to pursue such a rigorous academic path. Her lessons are focused on what is considered appropriate for a future wife and mother. She studies French music, practicing scales on the upright piano in the corner, and watercolor painting. Both children learn history and literature, but the emphasis is different. The son learns of empires and battles. The daughter learns of courtly manners and romantic poetry. Their education is a carefully tailored preparation for the distinct roles they are expected to play in society. The atmosphere is quiet, orderly, and intense. A mistake is met with a sharp word of correction from the governess, whose own livelihood depends on the progress of her young charges. Now, your perspective moves to the Harrison household. There is no dedicated schoolroom here, and no private governess. The Harrisons place a high value on education as a means of social mobility, and they make financial sacrifices to ensure their children receive the best schooling they can afford. Their son might attend a local grammar school, a competitive institution that offers a path to university for bright boys without the pedigree of the Ashworths. Their daughter might attend a private day school for girls, which would emphasize accomplishments alongside academics. After the school day, the kitchen table transforms into a study space. You see the Harrison children, their faces serious with concentration, hunched over their books under the warm glow of a gas lamp. You, as Mrs. Harrison, might be helping your daughter recite a poem by Tennyson. Its patriotic and noble verses considered an important part of a young lady's cultural education. You might be testing your son on his multiplication tables, drilling him to ensure he keeps up with his peers. The sounds are of a pencil scratching on a slate, the low murmur of recitation, and the occasional sigh of frustration. Education here is not a given. It is an opportunity, a precious investment in the family's future. It is the ladder they hope their children will climb to a life even more comfortable and secure than their own. But this new emphasis on education also brought with it some rather rigid and punishing methodologies. One of the most striking examples was the treatment of left-handedness. In many schools, writing with the left hand was seen as a sign of stubbornness or even moral deviancy. It was considered improper and inefficient. To correct this, some teachers would resort to harsh measures, such as wrapping the student's left knuckles with a ruler or even tying the child's left hand behind their back to force them to use their right. Historians still debate the outcome of this widespread practice. Did it actually succeed in creating a generation of more uniformly right-handed people, or did it simply result in a population of sneakier lefties, who learned to write with their preferred hand only when the teacher wasn't looking? This small, cruel detail reveals a broader Edwardian belief in discipline and conformity, in molding the child to fit a predetermined ideal. Finally, you see the world of the Smith children. For them, education is a fragile, precarious thing. The Elementary Education Act of 1880 had made schooling compulsory for children up to the age of 10. But for the poorest families, this was a law often in conflict with the urgent need for a child to earn a wage. If the Smiths are lucky and can spare the pennies of lost income, their children might attend a local board school. You see inside one of these classrooms. It is a vast, cavernous room, often holding 100 children or more, all taught by a single, overwhelmed teacher and perhaps a few pupil teachers, older students who assisted with the younger ones. The noise is immense, a cacophony of shuffling feet, coughing, and chanted lessons. The air is stuffy and smells of chalk dust and damp wool. The curriculum is stripped to its bare essentials, the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. The goal is not to create scholars or gentlemen, but to produce a minimally literate workforce. The children learn by rote, chanting their times tables and the letters of the alphabet in unison. Discipline is swift and physical. The cane is a common tool for enforcing order. You see children with red, stinging hands for the crime of talking, fidgeting, or failing to answer a question correctly. Many of the students are tired and hungry, making concentration nearly impossible. Some might fall asleep at their desks, having been up since dawn for a morning job. For many working-class children, school is a brief chapter in their lives. By the age of 12 or 13, they will have left the classroom for the factory floor, their formal education over. For them, the most important lessons are not learned from books, but from the harsh realities of the street and the workplace. Their education is in resilience, in street smarts, and in the unwritten rules of survival in a world that offers them very little in the way of second chances. As evening descends, casting long shadows across the gardens, streets, and courtyards of Edwardian England, the day culminates in its final and most significant meal, dinner. This was not just about satisfying hunger. It was a powerful social ritual, a time for family to gather, and a final, definitive statement of class and circumstance. You find yourself once again seated at 3 tables, experiencing the vast gulf between feast and frugality. Your senses are first filled by the grandeur of the Ashworths' dining room at night. The heavy velvet curtains are drawn, shutting out the world. The room is bathed in the soft, flickering glow of candlelight from a silver candelabrum on the table, and the gentle hiss of gas lamps in sconces on the walls. The light glints off the polished silverware, the crystal glasses, and the fine china, creating a scene of warm, enclosed luxury. The atmosphere is hushed and formal. Dinner is the most elaborate performance of the day. As Mr. and Mrs. Ashworth, you have changed into formal evening attire. A dinner jacket for you, a fashionable gown for your wife. The children have already eaten their simpler meal in the nursery and are now safely in bed. This time is for adults. The meal consists of multiple courses, served with painstaking precision by the parlor maid, who moves silently around the table. You might begin with a light, clear soup, or perhaps oysters on the half shell. This is followed by a fish course, such as poached salmon with a delicate hollandaise sauce. The main course is the centerpiece, a roasted joint of lamb or beef, brought to the table whole for presentation before being carved on the sideboard. It is served with a variety of carefully prepared vegetables, roasted potatoes, and a rich gravy. A lighter course, perhaps a savory pudding or a game bird, might follow. Finally, a dessert of elaborate construction, like a charlotte russe or a trifle, is presented, followed by a savory course of cheese and biscuits. Each course is paired with a different wine, selected by you from your well-stocked cellar. The etiquette is as complex as the menu. There is a correct fork for fish, a specific knife for fruit. Conversation is an art form kept light and pleasant. You discuss art, literature, or travel. Controversial topics like politics or money are generally avoided. One of the most rigid, and to a modern observer peculiar, rules of etiquette concerned bread. A small bread roll sits on a plate to your left. It was considered the height of bad manners to cut this bread with a knife. The only proper way to eat it was to break off a small piece at a time with your hands. Historians still discuss the reasoning behind this seemingly arbitrary rule. Was it a genuine mark of refined manners? A way to distinguish the well-bred from the common folk who would saw at their bread? Or was it, on a more practical level, just a clever and subtle way to avoid washing more knives at the end of an already labor-intensive meal? Now you are a Harrison, and the evening meal is a much cozier, more familial affair. The family gathers around the oak table in the dining room, the same table where the children did their homework just a few hours earlier. The room is lit by a single, bright gas lamp hanging over the table. The meal is substantial and comforting, the reward at the end of a long day of work and school. Dinner is likely a single, hearty main course. It might be a thick stew, full of meat, potatoes, and root vegetables, that has been simmering slowly on the stove all afternoon, filling the house with its savory aroma. Or perhaps it is a shepherd's pie, with its savory filling of minced meat and gravy topped with a golden brown crust of mashed potatoes. Toad in the hole, sausages baked into a fluffy Yorkshire pudding batter, is another family favorite. These are economical dishes, designed to be filling and to make a small amount of meat go a long way. Dessert is simple and comforting. A baked apple, a rice pudding, or a slice of treacle tart. The atmosphere is relaxed. This is the main time for the family to reconnect. You, as Mr. Harrison, ask the children about their day at school. Mrs. Harrison recounts a story about a neighbor. The conversation is about the small details of their shared life. There is still a sense of propriety. Children are expected to sit up straight and not speak with their mouths full. But the rigid formality of the Ashworth table is absent. This meal is the anchor of the family's day, a moment of warmth and togetherness that reinforces their identity as a solid, respectable unit. Finally, you are a smith. The evening meal, often called supper, is taken in the same single room where you started the day. The family huddles around the small table, illuminated by a single, flickering oil lamp, or perhaps just the glow from the fire. The meal is, by necessity, frugal and simple. It is often a variation on what was served at midday, or whatever can be bought cheaply at the end of the day. It might be a few slices of bread with a bit of cheese, or perhaps a penny soup from a local cookshop. A great treat would be fish and chips, wrapped in newspaper, a cheap, hot and filling meal that was becoming increasingly popular in working-class communities. The fish would be whatever was plentiful and cheap, and the chips thick and satisfying. Or perhaps your mother has managed to make a broth from a saved ham bone, with a few vegetables thrown in. Sometimes, the meal is just more bread and tea. The primary goal is to fill empty stomachs and provide enough sustenance to face the next day. There is little conversation. The family is often too tired for talk, worn down by the day's labor. The sounds are of scraping spoons, of weary sighs. Yet even here, in the dim light of the crowded room, there is a sense of communion. Sharing this meager meal is an act of solidarity, a quiet confirmation that they are a family, facing the hardships of their world together. For a moment, the relentless struggle is held at bay by the simple, profound act of breaking bread, no matter how humble that bread may be. With the evening meal concluded, the day begins to wind down, and attention turns to the final rituals before bed. One of the most telling of these is the act of washing, of cleansing oneself of the day's grime. In an era before ubiquitous indoor plumbing, hygiene was a matter of effort, technology, and class. The standards of cleanliness were improving dramatically during the Edwardian period, but the experience of getting clean varied wildly from a luxurious soak to a quick, cold splash. You find yourself first in the Ashworth's home, in a room dedicated solely to the act of bathing. The bathroom is a marvel of modern plumbing, a testament to the family's wealth and progressive sensibilities. The floor is tiled in a black and white geometric pattern, and the walls are tiled halfway up, making them easy to clean. The centerpiece of the room is a magnificent freestanding porcelain bathtub with ornate claw feet. It is enormous, long enough to stretch out fully. The ritual of the bath is an event. The housemaid has spent a considerable amount of time preparing it for you. She has carried numerous heavy buckets of hot water up from the kitchen stove to fill the tub, a physically demanding task. She has laid out thick, fluffy towels on a heated towel rail, a luxury item connected to the hot water system. A small table beside the tub holds a bar of expensive, scented soap, a large sea sponge, and a bottle of bath salts. You sink into the deep, hot water, and the sensation is one of pure, decadent bliss. The heat soothes your muscles, and a sense of deep relaxation spreads through you. You can lie back, the water buoying you up, and simply soak, the steam rising around you in a fragrant cloud. This is not just about getting clean. It is a therapeutic, almost sensual experience. It is a private, luxurious ritual that washes away not just the physical dirt of the day, but also its mental stresses. When you are finished, you rise from the tub, wrap yourself in a warm towel, and feel utterly renewed. The dirty bath water will be bilaid out by the maid, another invisible part of the labor that underpins your comfort. Then your perspective shifts to the Harrison household. They do not have a dedicated, fully plumbed bathroom like the Ashworths. Their home might have a flushing toilet, a significant modern convenience, likely located in a small, separate water closet. But bathing is a more complicated affair. There is no permanently installed bathtub with taps. Instead, bath time is a weekly or bi-weekly event that requires significant preparation and temporarily transforms the kitchen into a bathhouse. On bath night, a large, portable tin or zinc bathtub is brought into the kitchen, the warmest room in the house, thanks to the constantly running range. The entire family will use this tub in succession, which requires a strategic approach to the bathing order. The children often go first, splashing about in the clean, hot water. Then, the parents take their turns, with more hot water being added from the stove as needed to keep it warm. The water becomes progressively murkier with each use. You experience this as Mrs. Harrison. After the children are done, it is your turn. The water is still warm, and the soap is a simple, unscented carbolic soap, known for its disinfectant properties. It is not a luxurious soak, but a practical, thorough wash. The kitchen is steamy and filled with the clean smell of soap. Afterwards, you feel refreshed, but the work is not over. The heavy tub must be emptied bucket by bucket, a task you might share with your husband or the maid, Mary. For daily hygiene, you rely on the pitcher and basin in your bedroom. A top and tail wash with a flannel and cold water in the morning, and again before bed, is the standard routine. It is functional, it keeps you clean, but it lacks the indulgent pleasure of the Ashworth's full immersion. Within this world of evolving hygiene, there were many popular theories about how to maintain good health. Beyond the open windows and cold baths, some Edwardians believed fervently in the power of friction. This involved a brisk, vigorous rub-down of the entire body with a coarse towel, or, for the truly dedicated, a special brush made of horsehair. The idea was that this friction would stimulate the circulation, invigorate the skin, and ward off all manner of ailments from chills to lethargy. You can almost feel the sensation, a rough, scratching, invigorating friction that would leave the skin tingling and red. Historians still debate the true effects of this practice. Was it genuinely invigorating, a kind of homespun deep tissue massage that promoted blood flow and a sense of well-being? Or was it, for most people, just really, really itchy? Finally, you are a smith. In your crowded tenement, the concept of a private bath is an unimaginable fantasy. There is no bathroom, no running water inside your flat. The only source of water is the shared tap in the courtyard downstairs. Consequently, a full-body wash is a rare and difficult undertaking. It might be accomplished with the same tin tub used for laundry, filled with water heated on the small stove, a laborious process reserved for special occasions or when the grime becomes truly unbearable. Your daily wash is the most basic it can be. It consists of a quick splash of cold water on your face and hands from a communal bucket or basin. Soap is a precious commodity and is used sparingly. The feeling is not of refreshment or renewal, but of a brief, functional rinsing. The water is shockingly cold, and the shared towel is perpetually damp. You are never truly free from the layer of city grime that settles on everything. For many working-class families, the only opportunity for a proper hot bath was a visit to a public bathhouse. These institutions were built by many municipalities out of a concern for public health. For a few pence, you could get a small, private cubicle with a tub and access to hot water. It was a godsend, a chance to soak away weeks of accumulated dirt. But it cost money and time, luxuries the Smiths could rarely afford. So, for the most part, hygiene is a constant compromise, a matter of doing the best you can with a bucket of cold water and a sliver of soap. It is another reminder of the profound gap that separated your world from the clean, warm, scented world of the Ashworths, a gap measured not just in miles or money, but in access to the simple, profound comfort of hot water. As the day draws to a close, you find yourself navigating not a physical space, but a complex and often invisible architecture of social rules. This is the world of Edwardian etiquette, a dense maze of spoken and unspoken codes that governed nearly every aspect of life, especially for the upper and middle classes. Mastering this system was essential for social survival. A misstep, a forgotten rule, or an inappropriate gesture could lead to social ostracism, a quiet but devastating fate. You are an Ashworth, and your entire day has been a performance of correct social behavior. Now, in the evening, as you sit in the drawing room after dinner, the rules are as present as ever. You are hosting a few guests. The ladies are seated, and the gentlemen stand perhaps by the fireplace, sipping a glass of port. The conversation is a carefully managed flow, avoiding any topic that might be too personal, too political, or simply too dull. It is considered bad form to speak at length about your own health or your children. The goal is to be pleasant, witty, and engaging without ever being overly familiar. You are acutely aware of the subtle physical language of etiquette. How to hold your teacup, never with your little finger extended, a common misconception. When to stand when a lady enters the room, always. How to address a duchess should you ever meet one, a complex protocol involving titles and curtsies. Even a yawn is a social crime. If you feel one coming on, you must suppress it with the iron will of a soldier. To yawn in the company of others is to suggest that you are bored by them, a mortal insult. It is a world of constant self-monitoring, of restraining natural impulses in favor of a polished, controlled exterior. This obsession with correctness extended to all forms of social interaction, including written ones. The thank you note was not just a polite gesture. It was a social obligation governed by its own set of rigid rules. After attending a dinner party, you were expected to send a handwritten note to your hostess within a day or two. There were even books and magazine articles dedicated entirely to the proper way to write these notes. They advised on the correct tone, grateful but not effusive, the proper length, brief and to the point, and even the right kind of stationery to use. It was a miniature art form. Historians, looking back at the sheer volume of these meticulously crafted notes, still wonder if anyone actually enjoyed writing them, or if it was a universally dreaded chore, another piece of social machinery that simply had to be kept running. Now you are a Harrison and you, too, are navigating a social maze, though perhaps with a few fewer perilous turns. As a middle-class family, your social life is a careful imitation of the upper classes, adapted to your more modest means. You subscribe to the same codes of conduct because aspiring to gentility is a core part of your identity. You may not be entertaining dukes, but you know the importance of using the correct fork and addressing your elders with respect. Your social interactions are more likely to revolve around the church, local clubs, or visits with family and other respectable neighbors. When you host a tea, you strive to make it as elegant as possible, using your best silver-plated teapot and serving carefully arranged sandwiches. You pride yourself on your good manners and on raising your children to be polite and well-behaved. The fear of being seen as common is a powerful motivator. This means correcting your children if they speak out of turn, ensuring your husband remembers to remove his hat indoors, and always returning social calls promptly. Your adherence to these rules is a way of signaling your respectability, of drawing a clear line between your family and the lower orders. The unspoken rules are everywhere. There are rules for visiting the sick, keep it brief. For courtship, heavily chaperoned and formalized. And even for mourning, a complex system of black clothing and social withdrawal that could last for years. It is a life lived with a constant awareness of how you are being perceived by others. You are both a performer and a judge in a continuous, neighborhood-wide play of social respectability. It can be exhausting, this constant vigilance, but it is the price you pay for your place in the middle rungs of the social ladder. Then, your perspective shifts to the world of the Smiths. Here, in the crowded streets and tenement blocks, the elaborate etiquette of the Ashworths and Harrisons is almost entirely absent. It is a foreign language, a set of concerns from another planet. There are no calling cards, no thank you notes, no debates about the proper way to eat bread. Survival is the primary concern, and the social codes that develop are based not on formal etiquette but on the practical necessities of communal living. The rules that govern your life are unwritten and enforced by the community. There is an etiquette to sharing the communal water tap, a code of conduct in the local pub. You learn quickly who can be trusted, who to avoid, and who might lend you a cup of sugar until payday. The rules are about reciprocity and reputation. Your reputation is not based on your table manners, but on whether you are a hard worker, whether you pay your debts, and whether you help a neighbor in a crisis. Social interactions are direct and unfiltered. There is no time for the subtle, coded language of the drawing room. Arguments are loud, friendships are fierce, and community is everything. A major social event might be a street party for a national holiday, or a knees up at the pub with singing and dancing. The rules here are about solidarity. You might not have a formal code for mourning, but when a neighbor passes away, the whole street will chip in for the funeral and support the grieving family. This is a different kind of social contract, one forged in shared hardship rather than inherited privilege. It is less about polishing the self and more about protecting the group. The maze you navigate is not one of social niceties, but of survival, where the unspoken rules are not about avoiding a faux pas, but about securing your family's place in a tough, unforgiving, yet deeply interconnected world. As the final hours of the day tick away, the need for diversion and entertainment makes itself felt across all three households. In an age before television, radio, or the internet, entertainment was a more participatory and communal affair. It was often homemade, centered around the family and the neighborhood, and it provided a much-needed release from the pressures of the day, whether those pressures were managing a household or surviving a factory shift. You are an Ashworth, settled in your drawing room after the guests have departed. The fire crackles merrily in the grate, casting a warm, dancing light on the room. This is a time for quiet family togetherness. One of your daughters might be persuaded to play the piano. She sits at the polished instrument and plays a popular drawing room ballad or a piece by a composer like Chopin. Her playing is accomplished, another testament to her refined education. The family listens quietly, appreciating the gentle melody that fills the silent house. After the music, someone might suggest a game. Charades is a perennial favorite, a chance for some light-hearted performance and laughter. The family divides into teams, and soon you are dramatically miming a book title or a historical event, your usual formal demeanor melting away in the spirit of the game. Another popular and surprisingly long-lasting parlor game was the Minister's Cat. It was a simple memory game. The first player starts by saying, "The minister's cat is an ambitious cat," using an adjective that starts with A. The next player must repeat the phrase with a different A adjective, and so on. Then you move to B, with each player having to recall all the previous adjectives in order. It sounds simple, but as the alphabet progresses and the list of adjectives grows, it becomes a fiendish test of memory. A single game could last for hours, or at least until someone finally surrendered or, more likely, simply fell asleep in their armchair. Historians still debate the true purpose of such marathon games. Were they designed to build character and sharpen the mind, or did they simply test the limits of human patience and provide a socially acceptable way to doze off after a heavy meal? Now you are a Harrison, and your evening entertainment is similar in spirit, though perhaps a bit more boisterous and less formal. Your parlor is smaller and cozier than the Ashworth's grand drawing room. After the dinner, things are cleared away and the family gathers. You might not have a piano, but perhaps your son has a violin he is learning, and he scrapes out a recognizable tune. Or more likely, the family engages in a sing-along. One of the children has a book of popular songs, and you all gather around to sing tunes from the music halls or patriotic anthems. Your voices might not be perfectly in tune, but the shared act of singing fills the room with a cheerful energy. Reading aloud is another common pastime. Mr. Harrison might read a chapter from a popular adventure novel, like one by H.G. Wells or Arthur Conan Doyle, his voice rising and falling with the drama of the story. The family listens, captivated, their imaginations painting the scenes described in the book. Games are popular here too. Ludo, snakes and ladders, and card games like whist are played with a competitive but friendly spirit around the dining room table. This is entertainment that costs little or nothing, and it serves the crucial purpose of strengthening family bonds. It transforms the home from a place of work and duty into a place of warmth, laughter, and shared experience. It is a quiet form of resilience, finding joy and connection in simple, accessible pleasures. Finally, your awareness shifts to the Smith family and their community. For them, the tiny, crowded flat offers little space or opportunity for parlor games. Entertainment is not something that happens in a dedicated room. It happens in the street, in the pub, or in the brief, exhausted moments before sleep. After the meager supper, if there is any energy left, your father might pull out a harmonica and play a simple, plaintive folk tune, a melody that speaks of hardship and hope. You and your siblings might huddle around, listening the music, a small comfort in the chilly room. More often, entertainment is found outside the home. The streets of working-class neighborhoods were vibrant, lively places. You might see a street performer, a musician playing a barrel organ, an acrobat, or a man with a dancing bear, who would draw a crowd of neighbors, all willing to part with a precious half-penny for a moment of wonder. The local pub is the center of social life for the adults. It's a place to escape the cramped tenement, to share news, and to enjoy the warmth of a fire and the company of others. On a Saturday night, the pub would be filled with the sound of a community singing together, their voices raised in defiant, joyful noise. For the children, the street is their playground and their theater. They create their own entertainment with remarkable ingenuity. A game of tag, a skipping rope, a ball made of rags, these are the tools of their leisure. They know the stories and songs of the street, a rich oral tradition passed down from one generation to the next. Their entertainment is raw, energetic, and deeply communal. It is a testament to the human spirit's ability to create joy and community, even in the most challenging of circumstances. Whether it is the quiet concentration of the minister's cat in a silent drawing room or the raucous chorus of a song in a crowded pub. These simple pleasures are the threads that bind the fabric of Edwardian life, offering a brief, shining respite at the end of a long day. The games have ended, the songs have faded, and a deep quiet settles over the houses and the city. It is time for bed. The final rituals of the day are a mirror of the first, a process of winding down that is, once again, shaped by the realities of class, comfort, and custom. As you prepare for sleep, you experience the distinct sensations of three very different worlds settling down for the night. You are an Ashworth, and the transition to sleep is a gentle, managed process. As you ascend the grand, carpeted staircase to your bedroom, you can feel the deep stillness of the house. The servants have completed their final tasks and have retired to their own sparse quarters in the attic or basement. Your bedroom, which the maid prepared an hour ago, is an oasis of warmth and comfort. The fire in the grate has been built up to a gentle, steady glow that will last for much of the night, taking the sharp edge off the room's chill. The bed has been turned down, the covers folded back in an inviting triangle. But the greatest luxury awaits you within the sheets. Tucked deep inside the bed is a long-handled brass or copper warming pan. Earlier, a maid filled its lidded container with hot coals from the fire, closed it, and then passed it between the sheets, slowly warming the cold linen. The result is that when you slide into bed, you are met not with a shocking cold, but with a pre-warmed, deeply comforting cocoon. It's a simple but profound luxury, a final buffer between you and the raw cold of the night. You might read for a few minutes from the book of poetry left on your bedside table, the pages illuminated by a single candle or a low-burning gas lamp. The house is silent. Your mind is at ease. Your last thoughts are not of worry or want, but perhaps of the next day's social engagements or a passage from your book. You drift off to sleep in a fortress of quiet, warmth, and security, confident that the well-oiled machine of your household will begin running again the moment you ring your bell in the morning. Now you are a Harrison. Your bedtime rituals are simpler, but no less cherished. The house quiets down as the family prepares for sleep. You walk through the downstairs rooms, checking that the front door is locked and the gas lamps are turned off, a nightly responsibility that falls to the head of the household. You climb the stairs, the floorboards creaking familiarly under your feet. In your children's bedroom, you perform the most important ritual of the evening. You sit on the edge of their bed and tell them a good night story or listen to their prayers. This is a moment of pure, focused affection, a quiet connection at the end of a busy day. It reinforces the loving, nurturing core of your family life. There is no brass warming pan for your own bed. Instead, you likely have a stoneware hot water bottle, a more modern and accessible invention, filled from the kitchen kettle and wrapped in a flannel cover. You slip it between the cold sheets, its concentrated warmth a small but welcome comfort. Before you get into bed, you might stand at the window for a moment, looking out at the dark, quiet street. You think about the day's work, the small triumphs and worries. You think about the household budget, the children's futures. Your mind is more occupied with practicalities than the Ashworths, but there is a sense of satisfaction in a day well spent, in a family that is safe and sound. Your sleep is the sleep of a responsible person, earned and well-deserved. In this era of burgeoning scientific thought and lingering folk beliefs, many people held onto small, personal rituals to protect their health. One of the more peculiar of these was the belief that an onion could ward off illness. Some Edwardians swore by the practice of slicing an onion and placing it on a plate or even directly under the pillow before sleep. They believed the onion would absorb airborne germs, like influenza or the common cold, purifying the air in the bedroom and protecting the sleeper. Historians still can't decide if this practice was at all effective from a microbiological standpoint, or if it simply made for some very odd, pungent dreams and a strong desire for a breath of fresh air in the morning. Finally, you are a smith. The end of the day is not a gentle winding down, but a final, weary collapse. There is no separate bedtime for the children. The whole family retires at once, seeking the oblivion of sleep as a respite from their exhausting lives. The single room that is your world is dark, save for the faint, dying glow of the stove's embers. You do not change into special night clothes. You likely sleep in your undergarments, or perhaps even some of the clothes you wore during the day for extra warmth. The last ritual of the night is a grimly practical one, a quick check for bed bugs. These tiny parasites were a constant scourge in the overcrowded tenements, hiding in the cracks of the floorboards and the straw of the mattress. A quick inspection by candlelight, though often fruitless, is a necessary precaution. You crawl onto your straw pallet, huddling together with your siblings for warmth. The thin blanket does little to keep out the deep, penetrating cold that settles into the room. There are no warming pans, no hot water bottles. The only source of heat is each other. You lie there in the darkness, listening to the sounds of the tenement, the coughing from the next flat, the distant sound of a drunken argument in the street, the scurrying of a rat in the walls. These are the lullabies of your world. Your last thoughts are not of poetry or social plans. You think of the ache in your back from the day's labor. You think of the gnawing emptiness in your stomach. You hope that your father was able to find work today and that he will find it again tomorrow. Sleep is not a luxury. It is a necessity, a temporary escape from a life of constant struggle. You close your eyes, not with a sense of peace, but with a deep, bone-weary exhaustion, praying for a few hours of dreamless, untroubled rest before the cold and the dark call you to wake up and do it all over again. You now float above the 3 sleeping households, a silent observer in the deep, quiet hours of the night. The Ashworths are lost in the plush comfort of their beds. The Harrisons rest in the respectable quiet of their suburban home, and the Smiths are huddled together for warmth in the heart of the sleeping, grimy city. The day is done. The routines, the rituals, the starkly different realities have all faded into the shared vulnerability of sleep. As you drift here, in the sleepy shadows between one day and the next, you begin to ponder the legacy of this era, to feel what remains of Edwardian England in the world you awake to. The Edwardian period was a brief, transitional moment, a final, flamboyant exhalation of the 19th century before the cataclysm of the First World War shattered its certainties forever. It was the end of an old world and the dawn of modernity, and its influence lingers in ways both obvious and subtle. You can see its legacy in the architecture of the suburbs, in the grand, red brick town halls and libraries built with a confidence bordering on arrogance. You see it in the layout of our public parks, those green lungs designed by the Victorians and perfected by the Edwardians as spaces for healthy, ordered leisure. The era's deep-seated class consciousness, while less rigid today, has left its mark on our language, our institutions, and our unconscious social biases. The aspirations of the Harrisons for a secure home, a good education for their children, a small measure of comfort and respectability, became the blueprint for the 20th century middle class. The struggles of the Smiths for better pay, safer working conditions, and a basic social safety net fueled the rise of the labor movement and led to the welfare state, a concept that would have been unimaginable to the Ashworths, who saw charity as a private virtue, not a public responsibility. The technological seeds planted in this era grew into the world we now inhabit. The telephone, a novelty in the Harrison office, is the ancestor of the device that might be resting on your own nightstand. The motor car, a thrilling and noisy toy for the wealthy Ashworths, would eventually reshape our cities and our lives. The tinned food that offered such convenience, like those breakfast sardines, was the forerunner of our global, industrialized food system. Even the anxieties of the time echo in our own. The Edwardian obsession with fresh air and physical fitness as a defense against disease feels surprisingly familiar in our modern, wellness-focused culture. And what of the food? The grand, multi-course feasts of the Ashworths have largely disappeared, but our fascination with elaborate cooking and dining experiences continues. Some Edwardian recipes, quirky as they may seem, have shown a surprising resilience. Mock turtle soup, a clever, budget-friendly dish invented in the 18th century, but still popular in Edwardian times, used a calf's head to mimic the texture and flavor of the much more expensive green turtle soup. Today, variations of this dish are still made, a culinary echo from a time of both great extravagance and resourceful imitation. Though thankfully, actual turtles are rarely, if ever, involved. You feel your own consciousness begin to recede from this past world. The images soften and blur at the edges. The grand Ashworth mansion, the cozy Harrison villa, the Stark Smith tenement, they all fade into a single, composite memory of a day lived in a world that was at once elegant and brutal, progressive and archaic. Historians still debate the true nature of the era. Was it truly a golden age of peace and innocence, a long garden party before the storm? Or does it only look that way in the soft, forgiving glow of candlelight, a romanticized memory that conveniently crops out the smoke, the poverty, and the struggle? The truth, as you have felt tonight, is that it was all of these things at once. It was an age of profound, unsettling, and fascinating contradiction. So, as you close your eyes for the final time on this world, let the gentle, steady rhythms of Edwardian England, its routines, its quirks, and its quiet, unremembered moments, guide you toward a truly restful and restorative night. This has been your Sleepless Historian, wishing you the most boring, delightful dreams. Sleep well, and may your canary never out sing your teapot. Now just allow your mind to float. Let go of the stories, the facts, the details of the Ashworths, the Harrisons, and the Smiths. Feel the weight of your own body, comfortable and secure in your own bed. Appreciate the simple, modern miracle of the thermostat that keeps you warm, the quiet hum of the refrigerator in your kitchen, the softness of your own sheets. These are the legacies of a century of struggle and innovation, comforts that were the wildest dreams of even the wealthiest Edwardians. There is nothing left for you to do now but rest. Let the echoes of the past fade into a soft, indistinct murmur. Let the characters you've met tonight dissolve back into the great, silent river of history. Your only task now is to breathe. Inhale slowly and deeply, and as you exhale, feel any lingering tension in your shoulders and your jaw just melt away. Let each breath be a quiet wave, washing over you, carrying you further and further away from the waking world. The past is a quiet country, and its stories are here to soothe you, to offer a gentle, steady path to the deep, peaceful sleep you deserve. Drift through time, dream through history. The night is yours. There is only rest now, only sleep.